Hello, hello, hey, sweet people. It is Foster from Inglês no Rádio. Today, it is just me, unfortunately. Or for better or for worse, it's just me today. For a lot of different reasons, Alexia is dealing with our dog, and it's raining. There's a lot of construction in our apartment, so it was really, really difficult for us to record together. So today's a solo episode. So I wanted to use this opportunity to answer a question that we received from one of our listeners. So maybe a couple of months ago, we asked you, our listeners, to send us audio questions. And we received a lot of really interesting and honestly difficult questions to answer. And this question today is it's a common question, but the way that our listener described the problem I thought was really interesting. I have a lot of opinions on the topic. So without further ado, let's listen to the question and then we'll talk about it.
Hey Alexa, hey Foster. This is Luan from Belo Horizonte. I would like to ask you guys about self-measurement of your level of English because I think it's widely known that some people lie on their resume, and I would like to know from you guys what is the best way to self-measure your English to put in a resume. Uh, yeah, because I would like to try and avoid overestimate and underestimate my English. So yeah, this is my question. And I would like to thank you guys for this space. It's really amazing to talk with you guys. I've been listening to you guys for a long time. So thank you for this space.
Thank you. Thank you, Luan, for the incredible question and just for being such a cool person. Okay, so this question has a lot of material. So Luan is asking about self measurement. He's asking about CVs, resumes, when people lie on their resume to get a job. I think his specific question is what is the best way to measure your English to put on your resume? Okay, so first, just a quick tip, Luan. In English, we say resume. So for some reason, all words that come from French, all words that are originally derived from French in English, we tend to add the A sound at the end. So we recorded an entire podcast episode about this. If I'm not mistaken, it's episode number 96, Como pronunciar palavras francesas em inglês, se não me engano. But for example, resume, cafe, ballet. I can't think of more right now, but just a good thing to think about. Okay, so this is a question that I've received many, many times. Some version of this question, like, hey, I'm applying for jobs and there is an English component to this job, or there's an English requirement, and I don't know how to describe my level of English. And it's a really difficult topic for a variety of reasons. Number one, I don't really enjoy talking about levels because, in my personal experience, a lot of students really get stuck thinking about their level. Like, am I an intermediate? Am I an advanced speaker? Am I upper beginner or something like that? And I don't think that really helps It's not very productive or beneficial to make progress. But in the case of jobs and what you put on your resume, it's important. So let's talk about it. But it's also difficult because the idea of self-measurement is really, really difficult. Like self-analysis, just imagine self-awareness. Like when you think about meditation or yoga or therapy, being self-aware takes a lot of practice. It's really difficult work. Being a human takes practice. So being aware of your skills in a foreign language, that's pretty difficult. But just because it's difficult does not mean that it is impossible. So let me give you some of my suggestions or recommendations. First, in general, I would recommend be honest. Do not lie on your resume. I know that a lot of people do. Maybe they're not lying. Maybe they're just exaggerating the truth. But for example, if you are applying for a job and you know that you are going to have to speak English every day during that job, it's not a good idea to lie on your resume because probably you're not going to be very good at your job if your English level is not very good. So I think that's the first point is be honest. Secondly, if you want to avoid the problem of self-measurement, there are a lot of different language certifications. You can also do some for free. Like I know Cambridge and Oxford have like English placement tests. There are a lot of different English level tests to get into universities. Some of these tests are really expensive. I don't recommend you doing that unless you truly need it. But you can also do free ones on the internet, and that gives you a little bit of extra certification. So instead of saying, I have proficient English, you could say, I don't know, I had a 90% proficiency level on the Oxford English placement test. So that's one option, getting some sort of certification. And I think most employers tend to like that because your resume is already a document with information about yourself. So having an extra certification is just more information about yourself. So probably not a bad idea. Secondly, there is this thing called the European framework. And this is how most countries and businesses in Europe, this is how most of them assess language skills. So the framework is a little bit complicated, but you have 6 options, I believe. So you have A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. So A1, you are a complete beginner. A2, you can have basic conversations, that kind of thing. B1, you're an intermediate, you're getting a little bit better. B2 is already quite advanced, honestly. I think we have a lot of students that fall into the B2 category. And then C1 is essentially fluent, but not perfect. And C2 is you can speak essentially like a native speaker. And again, there are many different tests that you can take online to see what your certification or what your level would be according to the European framework. So I would recommend this if you are applying for a job in Europe or with a European company or perhaps an international company, because the European framework is relatively well recognized on an international level.